Let me start by saying this. This is not a run-of-the-mill paranormal story. This is cold, calculated, human creepiness. I work the graveyard shift at a 24-hour gas station off I-95. The kind of place where the fluorescent lights hum like dying wasps and the coffee's been brewing since the Bush administration. It's just me, 3 aisles of expired snacks, and the occasional trucker who pays in coins that smell like diesel. Boring? Yeah, a little bit. But the overtime pays my rent. Or at least it did, until he showed up. The first time I saw him, I thought he was a tweaker. 2:17 a.m., according to the security camera timestamp. Wiry frame, hoodie pulled tight over his head, and shoved deep in his pockets. He didn't buy anything, just stood by the energy drink cooler, staring at the bulletproof glass separating my register from the rest of the store. When I asked if he needed help, he smiled. Not a creepy smile, worse, a polite one, like we were friends. "Just browsing," he said. His voice was sandpaper soft, like he hadn't used it in years. He came back the next night, and the next. Always between 2 and 3, always lingering near the coolers, never buying anything, never speaking unless I prompted him. I started calling him Shadow in my head. My manager laughed when I mentioned him. "Weirdos love night shifts," he said. "Just keep the taser under the counter handy." Then the notes started appearing. The first one was tucked under the windshield wiper of my car, a beat-up Corolla I parked beneath the lone working lamp in the lot. "You look tired," it read. Block letters cut from a newspaper. I chalked it up to a prank. The second note showed up 3 days later, slipped under the store's back door during my 1 a.m. trash run. "Switch to decaf, you'll sleep better." That's when I checked the security footage. Our cameras are supposed to cover every angle. Aisles, lot, storage room. But every time Shadow entered, the feed glitched, just static. And when I tried to pull up the parking lot archives from the night of the first note, deleted. Every second of the footage. I didn't tell my manager. He'd have said I was paranoid. Instead, I started locking the back door during my shifts, taser in my back pocket. But last Tuesday, Shadow changed the game. He walked in at 2:06, hoodie damp from the rain. This time he went straight to the counter. Up close, he smelled like motor oil and mint gum. "Pack of Marlboros," he said. I slid them through the glass partition. He held up a 20. When I reached for it, he didn't let go. His eyes locked onto mine. Flat. Cold. The kind of stare that makes your scalp prickle. "You should have listened to the notes," he said. Then the power went out. Not just the store, but the whole block. Pitch black, save for the faint glow of the highway a mile away. I fumbled for the taser, but he was already moving. I heard the click of the partition's door's manual release, the one I'd accidentally left unlocked after taking out the trash. I booked it to the storage room, phone flashlight bouncing off shelves of oil jugs and paper towels. The emergency exit was bolted from the outside to prevent theft, so I crammed myself into a corner behind a pallet of antifreeze, silenced my breathing, and prayed. He didn't rush. I heard his footsteps pause at the storage room door. Then his voice, calm as a therapist's. "I don't want to hurt you. I want you to understand." A pause. "You're here every night. Same time, same routine. Trash run at 1, coffee refill at 1:30. You even use the same bathroom stall." My blood turned to ice. He'd been watching, not just the store, but me. The beam of a flashlight swept the room. I held my breath as it grazed the pallet inches from my face. Then, miraculously, his phone buzzed. He cursed under his breath, answered in a hiss. "Not yet. The cops still have the footage from the pharmacy job. I need more time to wipe the system." A beat of silence, then, "Fine, but the safe's here a joke. I'll crack it and meet you at the spot." Footsteps retreated. The second he left, I called 911. Turns out, this guy and his crew had been hitting graveyard shift businesses for months, scouting, disabling cameras, and timing the robberies during storms to kill the power. The notes? A scare tactic to make me quit so they could replace me with someone less observant, I guess. They caught him 2 days later trying to disable cameras at a diner 20 miles south. His real name's Marcus Riggs. He's got a record longer than my arm. B&E, assault, identity theft. The cops found a list in his pocket. Gas stations, diners, pharmacies, all with night shifts, all employees' names crossed off, except mine. I quit the next day. My manager still hasn't mailed me my last paycheck. If you've ever spent 8 hours alone in a fluorescent lit maze of metal doors and echoing footsteps, let me tell you, silence is not peaceful. It's a vacuum, and vacuums suck. I started working nights at Safelex Storage 6 months ago to pay off some student loans. The job was really simple. Sit in the booth, check IDs for after-hours access, and ignore the occasional raccoon rummaging through someone's abandoned unit. Boring but safe, or so I thought. The first weird night was the 12th of October. Around 2 a.m., a guy in a gray hoodie pulled up in a dented U-Haul. No big deal, people move stuff at all hours, but he didn't park at a unit. He idled near the entrance and stared at my booth. The hair on the back of my neck prickled. When he finally got out, he kept his face angled away from the security camera. "Unit 237, he said, sliding a keycard under the glass. His voice was flat, like a text-to-speech bot. The name on the card read M. Voss. I cross-referenced the number. Unit 237 was rented to a Marjorie Voss, 68 years old. This guy was maybe 30. "ID?" I asked. He paused. Left it in the truck. Company policy requires ID for after-hours entry. I told him I couldn't let him in without it. He didn't argue, just nodded and left, but the U-Haul didn't. It stayed parked outside the gate for, I swear it was 2 hours. Engine off, taillights bleeding red into the dark. The next night he returned. Same hoodie, same U-Haul, but this time he had an ID. Marjorie Voss's. Photo scratched out. I called my boss, who said to use my judgment. "Cool, thanks." "I need to see your face," I said, nodding at the camera. He tugged his hood lower. "I'm her nephew. Then you won't mind if I call her." I googled Marjorie Voss. Local obituary. Died 3 weeks ago. When I looked up, he was gone. The U-Haul too, but Unit 237's padlock had been cut. Inside, nothing but a folding chair, a dead plant, and wet concrete. Things escalated. The night after the U-Haul vanished, I dug deeper into Marjorie Voss. Her obituary said natural causes, but public records told a darker story. She'd filed a restraining order against her nephew, Ethan Voss, 6 months before her death. Domestic violence, threats over inheritance. The photo matched hoodie guy's build. I called the non-emergency line. The cop who answered sighed. "We closed her case. No evidence of foul play." "What about the storage unit?" I said. "What storage unit?" I went back to 237. The dead plant was still there, but the concrete smell had sharpened into something metallic. It looked smaller than the other units. I kicked the back wall. Hollow. Behind a loose panel, I found a stained tarp, a shovel, and a jewelry box engraved MV. Inside, a pendant shaped like a magnolia, Marjorie's hometown flower according to her Facebook. Underneath, a life insurance policy. Beneficiary Ethan Voss. Next shift, I camped in the booth with my car keys in my fist. At 3:15, headlights pierced the gate. Not the U-Haul, a black SUV. Ethan got out, gloves on, dragging a heavy-duty trash bag. He didn't see me crouched behind the dumpster. He opened 237. The bag clinked. I waited a few minutes and then crept into the unit. The trash bag was gone, and in its place a pile of lime powder and a receipt from a hardware store dated October 11th, the day before she died. I called 911. I think someone's disposing of a body. They found Marjorie's DNA on the shovel, Ethan's fingerprints on the jewelry box, but no body. Without it, the DA says it's circumstantial. Ethan's still out there. Storage company re-rented Unit 237 last week. Needless to say, I don't work there anymore. I drive past sometimes, though. The light's always on. Let me start by saying I took this job at Cedar Ridge Apartments because the pay was stupid good for basically sitting on my ass. $25 an hour to watch security cameras and unclog the occasional toilet. But last Tuesday around 1 a.m., I found a slip of paper wedged under the door of the lobby office. In shaky cursive, it read, "Don't let her in after midnight, even if she begs." No name, no unit number, just those words. At first I thought it was a prank. Cedar Ridge is one of those aging luxury complexes with paper-thin walls and a revolving door of tenants. Grad students, divorced dads, nurses with brutal shifts. The kind of place where the weirdness blends into the background. But the note felt a little weirder than usual. The paper was thick, almost creamy, like it had been torn from some fancy journal, and the ink smudged under my thumb. It was fresh. I I spent the next hour scrubbing through camera footage, but the angle near the office door was busted. Had been since I started. Maintenance was getting to it. Classic. The next night, Mrs. Pena from 3A stopped by the office around 11 p.m. to drop off a Tupperware of tamales. "You're too skinny," she said, patting my arm. She'd do this every Thursday since her husband died. Nice lady. Always wore red lipstick, even at night. As she turned to leave, I noticed a smudge of ink on her thumb. Same shade as the note. I didn't say anything. What was I gonna do? Accuse a 70-year-old of leaving me cryptic threats? But when I checked the logbook later, her name wasn't listed as a visitor. The front desk had been empty when she showed up. Things ended up getting even weirder. Around 12:30 a.m., a woman I'd never seen before buzzed the lobby intercom. She was probably mid-20s, wearing a soaked-through hoodie, no makeup. "I'm here for 4B, she said, voice crackling through the speaker. "My key's not working." 4B, Hendricks. Quiet guy, late 40s, worked in consulting, whatever that means. He'd never had guests. I hesitated. The note flashed in my mind. Don't let her in. "I'll call Mr. Hendricks to verify," I said. Her face tightened. "No, don't. I'll just wait." She stepped back into the rain. I dialed 4B anyway. No answer. When I looked back at the monitor, she had left. The next morning, I checked the parking lot cameras. A black van with no plates idled near the dumpsters around 12:25. Gone by 12:45. Friday night, the power went out. Standard protocol is to walk each floor and check for outages. My flashlight bounced off the hallway walls as I climbed to the 4th floor. Near 4B, I heard muffled thumps, rhythmic like someone dragging furniture. Then a high, keening noise. A voice. I froze. "Mr. Hendricks?" Silence. Back in the office, I pulled 4B's file. Hendricks had moved in 6 months ago. No emergency contact listed. At 3 a.m., the lobby door clattered open. A man in a hoodie strode in. Head down, not a tenant. I stood, heartbeat increasing a bit. "Can I help you?" He ignored me and headed straight for the stairs. "Sir, I need you to sign in." He turned, pale face, hollow eyes. "Just visiting a friend." The stairwell door slammed behind him. I called the non-emergency line. They said they'd send a car. While I waited, I noticed Mrs. Pena's tamale container still on my desk. Inside, nestled in lard-stained foil, was another note. "You should have listened." The scream came from the 4th floor. I bolted upstairs, baton in hand. 4B's door was ajar. Inside, the apartment was empty. No furniture, no Hendricks, just a single steel chair bolted to the floor, straps dangling from the arms. A phone sat on the seat, looping a voicemail. "Hey, it's Amanda. I'm outside, but my key's not..." The elevator dinged. I turned as the hooded man stepped out, holding a knife. "You're in the way," he said. I ran. They never found Hendricks, or the woman. Police say that unit was rented under a fake ID. Mrs. Pena? Gone. Vanished. Her apartment was cleaned out like she had never existed. I quit the next day, of course, but here's the thing. Last night, someone slipped a note under my apartment door. Same paper, same ink. You didn't lock the lobby fast enough. And as I write this, outside my window, there's a black van idling. "Sir, I need you to sign in." He turned. The first one was tucked under the windshield.